Stand by. This is Ed, and welcome back to Global TV Talk Show. And we're here under the Coronado Bridge in San Diego Harbor. And I was on a tourist boat with Joanne one hot day a few months ago, and it was great to be on the boat and go under the bridge. It's pretty mighty. You see it all the time. Being a resident of downtown, and we go to Coronado 4 or 5 times a week right over the bridge. We used to live there, and so we have friends and very familiar with everything there. But going under the bridge is really unique as opposed to just looking at it or driving over it at 60 miles an hour. So I recommend that tourist trap idea because it will be really interesting and quite a relaxing time if the wind isn't too strong, rocking the boat. So this show's going to be about psychological safety and what does it mean and what is it, good and bad and in and out. And we're going to be joined by a couple of other people, but let's begin this because we're here on time. And uh, so Christian, I understand you have some debate or some comments on that graphic that I included on the website that was provided by the Center for Learning or Leadership, or whatever. What do you have to say about the idea of psychological safety in the workplace, and what does that mean to you?
So, should I share this?
Yeah,
Is
you're
this,
okay to do that. Use my
okay,
screen share.
let's see whether I can get that done.
So I asked Heather from London to join us,
Yeah,
but she's not feeling really up to it. Um, Energy
okay.
level.
Well,
Um,
we've got Ken, so we've got a few people who actually know what they're talking about here, unlike me. But one of the things when I read this and thinking about my own experience, I'm okay with the definition here. It doesn't mean everybody's nice to each other. It means that people feel free to brainstorm out loud, challenge the status quo, share feedback, and work through disagreements together. Absolutely agree with this. What I don't agree with is the um, the the way that this was prioritized. So raising awareness at number one, and then the ongoing feedback. Oops, sorry, I'm scrolling too
yeah,
fast. The
yeah. Scroll up
ongoing feedback,
the other way.
the other way. Hang
It's a
on.
good ad. Thank you very much.
Anytime. So the other one being the create safe feedback mechanisms and ongoing feedback and coaching. To me, that goes to the top because to me, and this comes from my own personal experience in the workplace, we're kind of really dealing with two different things here. We're dealing with the top down, creating a company culture, with training that everybody has to go through, some of it for legal reasons. Sexual harassment would be an example of that. Compliance would be an example of that. Conflict in the workplace. I mean, I had these trainings, I had to go through them every single year. Even when I sold cars for AutoNation, I had a sexual harassment training, which is hilarious because you can imagine that car salespeople are not necessarily the most feminist people on the planet. So there's a lot of that going on. And then there's the real culture and the real psychological safety that's being created, and that is by the manager. And the ongoing feedback and coaching, as well as the safe feedback mechanisms, as well as to some extent also the leading by example. That's what I would have put at the top in that order. Because if that doesn't work, then you can have your classes and training and oh, we're all a big family, all you want. Nobody's going to buy it. So that's my beef with
Interesting.
it.
Yeah. So were there women car sales people
Yes, there
when you
was
were working?
one. Yeah, there was one for a time. I mean, turnover was massive, but there was one, and it was very interesting in how she knew the world that she was operating in. She used some of it to her advantage, but she most of all was very impressive in that she had an extremely thick skin. She knew exactly how to deal with these guys and not get upset. But there was such a big, that's why I brought it up. There's such a big discrepancy between what the corporation, AutoNation is a huge corporation, what they teach you in those mandatory classes and what the reality is, you know, with the guys. I mean, we talked about locker room the other day. That was kind of daily. It was very uncomfortable. Um, but that was kind of the daily, you know, talk in that particular workplace. So there was only one.
Interesting. Yeah. Ken, what do you have to say about your experience on dealing with sexual harassment or uh, whatever you want to label this, psychological safety? Or...
Sure. No, in the sexual harassment area, on the training side, I've actually conducted courses on preventing sexual harassment and seminars on that. I think it's critical, it's essential in the company to prevent all forms of harassment uh, based on any number of factors and categories, but certainly sexual harassment is one. And in the company where I had worked as VP of Employee Planning and Development, we had an active program to prevent and actively deal with sexual harassment, and took action whenever it came up. What I hear Christian talking about is creating a hostile environment, and that's totally unacceptable. And we would take immediate steps, and employees could be terminated and were terminated on the spot for engaging in egregious acts of sexual harassment, because the company's value system was premised on treating people with respect and trust and fairness, and making it indeed a safe place for people to work. So if you really want to create a work environment that's positive and uplifting and motivational, sexual harassment and any forms of harassment simply can't be there. They have to be addressed, dealt with. I agree that people need to understand it. There need to be, just as Christian said, bona fide feedback mechanisms that take action on it, so people understand their particular behaviors are not acceptable. And again, if they're egregious, their employees are well informed of what the consequences will be. But it's a very serious matter, and it's something that does need monitoring in organizations across the board, and that's what we would do.
Well, I need to play devil's advocate here in my role as moderator. Uh, so, did you ever have in your experience whereby the predominant sex in the workplace was female and you were the only guy? And was there sexist behavior against the male for whatever reason?
Did I ever experience that where I'm the only male? I've been on committees and groups as the only male, and no, experienced none of it because of the overall culture that's established with the groups that I work with. Are there instances of females sexually harassing males and frankly other females? And the answer is yes. And the same action applies. It's not just males harassing females, but in terms of females in a group overpowering a male, I personally have not experienced that at all. In the company where I used to work, we had males and females of at all job levels, all the way up to executive VP, and individuals worked with respect toward each other and built from there. But I don't know, Christian, have you ever experienced the kind of situation that Ed just described?
No, not in that extreme way. I mean, I do think it's relatively rare. Certainly a lot more rare than the other way around, that the male is the aggressor, be it male, be it male, female. But the mobility industry is very much women, you know. Ed, I'm sure you know that, and you've experienced that yourself. The mobility industry is just a lot of other customer service industries. Think about airlines, you know, maître de cabine may be a man, maybe not, but a lot of the staff that serves you in the plane or at the gate is going to be female in most cases. So mobility is a little bit like that. And what that means is that they're the stereotypical alpha males, who just always have to mark their turf. They exist. I've encountered a few, but they're relatively rare. Maybe they're at the top levels. They're like good old boys. Yes, that exists. But by and large, I want to say, if you're a man, particularly if you're a straight man like me in the mobility industry, you just know what you're surrounded by and who you're surrounded by.
Yeah,
You wouldn't do
right.
that. It's just kind of, you'd be so outside of the bounds of what everybody else is doing. I'm not even talking legally. I'm just talking in terms of behavior. It would just kind of fall flat. This isn't sports. This isn't, talking stereotypes for on purpose here, but let's say boxing. This isn't a testosterone fuel or day trading. This isn't a testosterone fueled environment, mobility. It really isn't. It's not paid like that either.
And when you
Yeah,
talk
okay.
about
Well, that is excellent. Thank you. Yes, please, Ken.
yeah, I was just gonna say, when you talk about psychological safety, employees, male or female, need to feel that they have the right and they are supported to come in and air and voice complaints, concerns, for example, to go back to sexual harassment, and to know that if they do mention this to management or go to HR, that it's not going to be brushed off, they're not going to be insulted or degraded or simply overlooked, but rather you have the right, and we encourage you to come in, talk about this if ever you experience and see it, so that we can take action on it immediately and make sure that this environment is safe and fair and adhering to legal guidelines. In some organizations, a person can complain about being sexually harassed. Oh, come on, deal with it, grow up. It's part of the world today. We'll get around to it. That's not safe. A safe environment, and get into psychological safety, as employees feel free to come in, express concerns about any issues that are going on without reprisals, without negative consequence, but with a respectful and open and transparent response and reaction from whomever they're speaking with.
I want to turn the conversation to what our friend Heather, the cafe coach in London, has done in her research. She is a business psychologist, fully degreed, and she did the research on dual career and impact on spousal relations, and therefore impacting the work performance, and therefore impacting company budgets that may get blown up if there's a divorce or a disruption that ruins an executive's work attitude and performance, and on it goes. So she's is going to be talking about psychological safety within that concept, within that context, at an upcoming event in person. And so she's saving her thunder, and that's the reason really why she's not going to participate until that time when she could talk about the impact, psychological impact on a dual career, and usually the spouse or life partner who's accompanying the employee on a high level, high impact, high risk executive assignment. I'm going on and on, so laying the groundwork for what she will add at a later time. But let's take what we can about what she's working on and bring it to today, right now in this show, and lay the groundwork for a deep dive later on. Ken, with your educational perspective and experience, did you ever get into psychological safety in spousal relationships because of workplace needs? The work in many bosses' eyes is number one. Forget about your personal life. Okay, make it work. Uh, and so that creates a feeling of disruption and could cause problems. Anyway, I'm going
Sure.
to stop talking.
Yeah. On an organizational level, in terms of policies and practices to deal with that, the answer is, from my experience, no. At the same time, on an individual basis, if an employee had some issues at home and wanted to come in and talk about them and how to handle it, that we would talk about. So yeah, the impact is there. A person's work is suffering. A person might come in and say, I'm just so distracted and I know it and I see it in my own performance. And I just want to tell you what I'm dealing with and what's going on right now. Okay, how can we help you? And all the way from, do you need to take some time off? Do you want to talk about some ways to deal with it? How do you want to approach it? So to be open and receptive to the issues that employees are experiencing. And I know we've talked in our past discussions on relocation about the important role that's played by the, if you will, the transferee's spouse and family, all the way from what about the children and their schools and medical care to the spouse and the spouse's career and what happens there. Why is your career more important than mine? Well, you can work remotely, and the spouse might say, no, I really can't. That's just, and all of that goes on. All of that is best discussed, certainly as it occurs. And I would, as you know, prior to making that kind of a move, we had employees who moved to different states, and the questions would come up about it, and to make sure that families, spouses in particular, are on board with what's going on there, and to let employees know that it is in fact safe for them to come in if they want to talk about personal matters. You wouldn't go up to employees and say, hey, are you having trouble at home? What's going on? Never. But if they want to come in and talk about it and we can help, that's what we would like to do.
That's great. That's very helpful.
So from my angle, there's three different things that Ken was talking about to me. So the first one is real help outside of the workplace, particularly if it's out of scope for you as a manager. That would be having a helpline like EAP, third party. I've used them a few times. They can provide you with, for instance, legal advice. So they connect you with a lawyer, and there's certain services that are free. They can connect you with a therapist. I called them once to find more about elder care for Erin's mother, because we have to start making plans for her. So they can help you with certain things. So let's set them aside. The second one is dealing with somebody from your team. And I had this many times that I would have people come in and I'd say, look, is there something? It was small teams that I managed. Is there something going on with you? I see that you're not happy, and your performance is suffering here and here. How can I help you? So that's the managerial approach. That's where you, at a foundational level, lay the groundwork for the kind of trust and openness that this slide talked about, that we just talked about, which is one of the reasons why I would put that on top and not at the bottom. And then the third one, that would be in a relocation situation where you're dealing with a spouse or a significant other. And that's where Heather and I have talked about this too, where it gets really interesting, because HR may not know that this tension exists. And it comes out when the relocation consultant says, all right, here's what's going to happen. We're going to sell your house. We're going to set up a time for your survey. Then they come, they pack your household goods, and then, you're going to be working at the new location. And okay, fine, everything's great. And then eventually you find out the spouse says, no, we're not moving. No, we're not having anyone come to an agent come to our house to do a marketing analysis. No, we're not going to have somebody look at a house of goods. No, we're not getting rid of anything. This is all important to me. This stays here. No, we're not taking the kids out of school at any time. figure out the timeline with your boss, spouse, you know. So all of this comes out later. And Ken, I agree with you. You want to figure all this out beforehand, but my experience has been very often either the transferee didn't share or the manager didn't ask the right questions or both.
It's really emotional. I mean, this could really go off the rails fast.
And it has. It has.
Yeah.
I've had, people crying, screaming. It's not abnormal. And it's kind of hard for me as a, amateur psychologist to train somebody on, a newer relocation consultant. This is what may happen. One relocation consultant I remember really well came in. She was a volunteer with an organization that helps people who are in horrible traffic accidents, goes to the site, it's called in the middle of the night, goes to the site and comforts the people that have survived relatively uninjured, but they're under total shock. And I thought, wow, with that skill set, you're going to be able to deal with pretty much whatever a transferee or a spouse may throw at you. But most other people don't have that skill set. And it was difficult for me to, like I said, train somebody to get there when I wasn't trained in that either. I just learned it in, practice.
So a few years ago, pre-COVID, one of my larger advertisers, sponsors, was the insurance company AIG.
Yes.
Which, okay, AIG. So there's huge company
Yeah.
back then and still is, although they've lowered their profile significantly. Um, and COVID just stopped that involvement, unfortunately. We did several meetings together in different locations in Dallas and Houston and Mexico City and New York and LA and somewhere else I can't remember. Oh, Miami. Yeah. And the topic was crisis management. And in Mexico City in particular, there was cartels robbing Americans or
Right.
anybody, but they targeted American tourists, American business people in particular, kidnapped them in gunpoint. They went to ATM and they got money out, and
Mhm.
then they left them alone. They just, they disappeared. But to talk about the emotional stress, financial, of course, and any physical damage or threats. Um, so it was a major insurance issue.
Mhm.
Okay. And so the answer was training,
Mhm.
never mind a shooter at work or in some kind of a gathering. What do you do? How do you stop the bleeding? So we brought in with AIG in full support what to do and who to call and all about mental stress and
Mhm.
how to recover from that or how to work towards recovery. And it's this discussion is bringing all that back to me. I didn't tie that together until just the last 5 minutes or so. And maybe we ought to get into that crisis management topic in a subsequent show. And it was before I recorded them, you know, so it's only in my memory and in the agenda. I have all the old agendas from yesteryear, a lot of them. uh, so I'll share that with you, and maybe we can dialogue about that. Ken, in your management experience, have you had a course, or did you give a course, or did you hire someone to be as a consultant to recover or to recover from a workplace incident or shootings or kidnappings or threats, uh, like unfortunately that is happening now?
In terms of bringing in outside experts, occasionally I can think of one situation that I actually was asked to handle, which I did, and it was a senior citizens business. It was a skilled nursing facility, and one of the members of the staff, it turned out, had been abusing an elder patient. So they fired the person. The staff was in tears. They were all broken up. And company called me while I come in and talk with them, and just let them vent, help them focus on what happened, and frankly, help them to deal with it, to process it, and move forward. This was such an outrageous situation. Here you are with the most caring people who are in these positions because they truly want to help others in difficult times in their lives. And that trust was totally abused by a coworker whom they trusted. And so we did individual and group discussions to help them move forward, never to forget about it, but to try to focus on other key aspects that they can do going forward in their lives to help them understand what happened in this situation. But yeah, in cases like that, we can also bring in consulting psychologists, behavioral scientists, or as Christian mentioned, there are hotlines that can be used as well. But it's interesting to define what a crisis is. Immediately when you see one. And this is not so-and-so's upset with work. This is way over the line where professional attention is needed. And those jump out very clearly at you and they call for action. This is not where you just say, hey, look, you're all adults. You can handle this. You're in a tough profession, as opposed to let's really talk about what happened here. And in many cases, just venting, let the anger come out, let the tears come out, let the sadness come out, and give them that opportunity to have a catharsis, and then see if we can put together some blocks and steps and let them know that what they're doing is okay and that's normal. And it would be shocking if they weren't that upset about it. So yeah, and as managers, we want to be very aware of that with our employees. Are there situations that are going on, whether it's in their work lives or their personal lives, that are this disruptive and this difficult to handle? Sometimes they jump out at you, as this one did. Other times, just as Christian said, you notice an employee's work is slipping off, or they're jumping at people, or they're just not focused. What might be going on? And this is not to go in and say, hey, what's happening in your family? Can I help you? I noticed, just in terms of the way these projects are handled, everything used to come in on time, and now it's late. And I noticed all these errors. Can we help? Tell me more about what's going on so we can help with this situation. And then if need be, then to bring in outside professionals in specific areas to help them get back onto track.
So
Thank you, Ken.
the reason why it's not just, even though that's incredibly important, about the manager caring about the employee, even if you take that out of the equation, with a small team, the work has got to get done. So as soon as you have a major disruption in anyone's life, it will impact the output of the team. So one of the first things that you'll have to do, as I learned, nobody taught me that, and theoretically, but as I learned, is to figure out what is the impact and how do I mitigate it. And that's when part of that research, part of asking the right question, is to find out from the employee in a very tactful and discreet manner, how much does this impact you? Because if somebody says, I have an illness and I may have to go on medical leave for 3 months, that is a massive change in terms of who does what kind of work when, right? This is sheer logistics. This has nothing to do with me being caring. This is just reshuffling, project management. If somebody says, you know what, my elderly parent is dying and I may have to go out and come back, but I'm here, I'm working. Okay, then you have another kind of plan in place, and I'm using plan very vaguely. Over time, you figure out a few directions, let's call it that, where you could go. So you have like a repertoire, but of course, every situation is different. And like Ken said, it's a crisis. And for me, one of the elements has always been the definition of a crisis is first of all, I'm way in over my head, right? That's why you hire consultants, because you know that. So when you don't have consultants, so you have to figure out with the best intentions what you can do to mitigate the risk and to channel the situation so that everybody can move on as best as possible. This is not, like you said, Ken, this is not people squabbling at work where you kind of know what to do or you say they're all adults here. This is like, okay, I've never dealt with this before. How do I even start? That kind of feeling.
So Christian, did you run into uh, a relocation cause mental breakdown?
Yes, like with the consultants, not mental breakdown is a bit extreme, but definitely, tears and over several days, like definitely impacting them. With transferees, yes, I have a few times, or heard my team talk about them. That I mean, I had one transferee I had who was very, very drunk and who would curse at me in Polish, and then he would explain what the curse words meant. It was the most bizarre situation, and he eventually got let go because I complained to human resources and said,
Yeah,
this guy is, he's not tipsy. He's completely incoherently drunk, yelling at me for wanting to organize his move.
right. And screwing up his personal life.
Well, he complained about that, wife had left him. I mean, it was like a good country and western song.
I'm speechless. Maybe we should stop the program here. Okay, so let's talk about the holiday season coming up soon.
Oh, you're
Um,
changing gears. Okay.
so it's a stressful time for some people, and other times
Yeah.
it's a lovely time. Um, so I'm planning a New York meeting. Hopefully it'll come off in the first week of December. And I'll have some news on that later today. As a matter of fact, I just got an email, Ken, from that guy that I was talking about earlier, saying that he'll call me at New York time, 2 o'clock. So, and I don't know what his response is going to be, but so New York is all decked out uh, in holiday lights, Christmas lights and Hanukkah lights or whatever holiday it is. It's everywhere in New York. You get a taste of everything. And cold weather for sure. Um, but people will come together for holiday parties or lunches or dinners. Uh, and the end of the year and look forward to the new year. There's all kinds of things going on. So I'm hoping to set up a live in-person meeting that'll have a virtual component. And so I'll invite you both to be involved, of course, and others, including Heather from London and others. So how do companies, when you were with Sterling Lexicon and others, and Ken, in your background with that company you were with for 18 years, how did you handle the holiday time, like between Thanksgiving and Christmas? Uh, because people have budget meetings
Hmm.
or year-end reporting, all kinds of things to do. Um, Yet the minds of many employees are clouded or overtaken by their own holiday issues or opportunities.
Hmm. So
Ken,
do
yeah.
you want me
Yeah,
to
and
start?
and yes, please. Okay.
Okay, so one of the things that we did at Sterling Lexicon, which I found very smart, my boss did that, was to have the holiday party early in December, not in the middle of December, and definitely not close to Christmas, but to have it like, maybe the 5th of December, because you're in the holiday spirit, but you're not, oh my gosh, it's coming up. I have this and this and this to do still. So that was one of the things. And then to kind of set the tone by being together, definitely sharing a meal pre-COVID in person, and just celebrating each other. We typically had games where we would share something about each other that people didn't necessarily know. I always found that extremely valuable and a simple and really nice way for team building. So that was one of the ways we did it that I really liked.
So, Ken, did you ever sponsor or manage a karaoke in the office at holiday time where people got
Karaoke?
a, yeah,
Not specifically karaoke. What we would do is just as Christian mentioned, as the holidays approached, we would change the appearance of the building and celebrate Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa. We would have a holiday party, and it would not be on Christmas. It would be earlier in December. And obviously, it depends on the kind of business. Some get very busy as the holiday season rolls around. Others are a little quieter. And so the work atmosphere and the focus can be very different depending upon the organization and the industry that we're in. But we would make sure that all are represented, and it would be a winter holiday. And that would really be the focus. And you could certainly talk about Kwanzaa or Happy Hanukkah or Merry Christmas. Those were not words that were in any way avoided. It was, in quotes, safe to celebrate the holiday that really depicts your belief system. And it was recognized and rewarded and appreciated. And it's interesting at the holiday time, there is this mix of emotions. On the one hand, 'tis the season to be jolly and be happy and upbeat and jingle bells and all the other nice things. On the other hand, there are some sad aspects to it. For a lot of people, they look back at old holidays that they celebrated with their grandparents or their parents who might no longer be here, or suddenly they're not children anymore. And you sense the passage of time, and that can affect people's mood. So on the one hand, it's great. And to see the sparkling eyes of children celebrating at the same time, they start looking at themselves and where they are and taking count. And am I where I thought I would be? Have I gotten to where it brings up a lot of those self-assessment questions. It can lead for some people to sadness and even incidents of depression that are increased during the holiday period. And we want to be aware of that and try to keep it upbeat and positive in the company. And there can be games, there can be activities, there can be special, in quotes, secret Santas if you want to do that. That does have the Christmas connotation, but you can have secret gifts. People can be sharing gifts with each other without putting the religious connection to it if the company is so inclined. But it's really respecting everyone's beliefs and their holidays. And it's nice that in December we have all of that converging where we get an opportunity to do that.
Yep.
One of the things that I've seen a few times is thinking about the year that has passed and thinking about the people that have left, not because they're dead, but because they've moved on to other jobs. That was always interesting, and it wasn't just me, it was other people independent of me that would come up and start talking about, oh yeah, I heard from so-and-so, they quit in March, and this is where they are now. And it's almost like a remembrance of those people. And then, the year after, you probably won't remember them as much, but because they belong to this entity, this unit of this calendar year, people bring them up. And I was surprised like I said, surprised to see that I wasn't the only one doing that. I don't know whether you've
Interesting
experienced that,
challenges.
Ken, but
Yeah.
this is an odd thing.
Yeah, you see that happen. They'll talk about, if you will, alums who used to work
Mm-hmm.
at the company, and there are times, and for whatever reason, around Christmas time, around the holidays, uh, their memories tend to come back. I think as people are thinking more about the past, and they might connect with old friends. I know that from my days at Cal back in the '60s, come this time of year, and it's already happened, I'll start hearing from them, and people start connecting and thinking about the past, and joyously, as well as with some, gosh, I kind of miss those days. So it's a little bit of each. So yeah, I see that happening with former employees, resurfacing, and memories of employees who have passed on or are no longer with us, talking about, wasn't it great when they were at the company? So this time of year, there's a lot of that retrospective kind of thinking going on at the same time.
Well, thank you guys for sharing this all without scripting. And I'm sure the audience sees this, and I hope they value it as much as I do. And I invite you to come back. Just a word about an upcoming event. October 18 is a Friday, and the topic is teams, dysfunction, or development. Okay. And these are the people who have already signed up to talk and be involved. And I got to put the light on so I could see this. Hold on. Okay. All right. Philip Berry, Stephen Howard. We have a tentative from my good friend Tatiana St. Germain, who's an excellent assessor of talent, and also Ken Summers. Ken Summers is a very senior, 40-year HR executive, international, mainly in the insurance industry, and Christian, of course, and very special announcement here. There's a woman in New York area, Heather Seacrest, who's a partner with Ernst & Young. And she was one of the hosts of my New York meeting this past May, where EY released the results of their worldwide corporate survey about relocation and managing talent across borders remotely. And so I've invited her to join this, and she said yes right away. So it's about teams, developing them, or how to deal with dysfunctions. Okay, and finally, Ken Oler. I don't think you have met him yet. He has been on my TV shows in the past, and he has spoken in person in the New York area, and also in a Chicago meeting I did a while ago. Ken is a PhD, just like yourself, in the same areas, Ken. And he's now employed, well, he does his own consulting, but he's very employed by this company that's based in Minneapolis, and Ken is in New York, called Radical. And I'll send you information about Ken Oler, and he's going to be joining us as on the TV show. And I'm going to find his memo here, which I received while we were broadcasting here. And I'll just be a second here. I just want to read what he's going to be talking about. I hope I can get this up. Okay. Okay, he's going to zero in on what he and the team at Radical is doing. I'm quoting him, we are working about team effectiveness in terms of building clarity, capability, and connection. and there's a couple of charts that he's going to show as well. And I will follow up later today and send you a couple of links to interviews I did with him on TV and share information. He is a great presenter, and the interchange is just great. And I hope you can join us on the 18th.
Well, since you have two Kens at the meeting, I don't want to miss that. You got to have three to meet. So I will be there. I will take care of that online right now. Well,
all right, that's cool.
Got to have
That's
three
cool.
Kens. The trifecta.
Yeah. That's great. Very, very, very good. So it's interesting how some topics just grab attention much more than others. And the timing is also important. It's 2 weeks out, almost 3 weeks, and it's enough time to breathing room to get the idea in front of people who may be, consumed by that time in other things. So hopefully all those people will continue on the path towards appearing on that program. It will be one for the ages, I believe. Yeah. So thank you again for being on the show. I really appreciate you meeting under the bridge.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Always enjoyable. Thank you.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
To see both. Take care.
Thank